I wanted to start this press conference just talking about an article that was written about our assistant coaches the other day. And I want to say this. When you talk about contracts, the situation is fluid. And, I know the men that are in this building. I know where their heart's at. And I also know the circumstances around decision-making and where they're looking for as where they're going in the future. So all I can say is this, is the final chapter has not been written on that, and they will continue to look and see and meet with our administration to see whatever they can do to help supplement the university. While I can't answer all your questions regarding this, I'd like to focus on Auburn, and looking at these guys as a team. To me, it starts offensively with their quarterback, Bo Nix, guy I'm very familiar with, and in fact, his granddad and my dad used to coach together, so I've known his family for a very long period of time. I think he's playing really, really good football. They have two really good wide receivers, or three, that have lots of experience out there on the outside. They got a stable of running backs, play a couple of guys at tight end, and they're big across the front. Going against Coach Malzahn over the years, they play with a lot of really up-tempo, different looks, spreads you all over the field. You really kind of got to keep your edges on the defense, try to eliminate explosive plays, make them drive the ball through you. Defensively, Kevin Steele is a guy that I've worked with many years ago, a good friend of mine. They play a lot of man-to-man. Mix it up defensively, create negative plays, play fast, play hard, have been really opportunistic over the course of this year. And in special teams, I think it's probably one of the better special teams units that we have seen. Very aggressive on their punt block team, have blocked a couple of punts, have been explosive in the kickoff return game, got good specialists. So it'll be a tremendous challenge. Really this past week, our players were very disappointed about not getting a chance to play. But I thought we put 3 really good consecutive practices together. Really good for our quarterbacks. I thought Harrison Bailey had a really good week along with Maurer and JT. And it was good to get Jimmy Callaway, Jimmy Holiday, Malachi Weidman, to get those guys extra reps there and just let them start understanding how to run the routes against certain coverages, So if you're going to run a steep route, a 10 to 12 yard comeback, if it's cover 2, you obviously want to convert it. Just the details of having to do it. Just to me, being able to have a chance for T and Coach Chaney to really kind of put their hands on these guys and coach them up, I thought was really good from a throw game standpoint. It's a chance for us to get healthy. And I feel like that our football team going into this week is probably as healthy as it's been in a while. So with that, I'll take any questions.
We'll start with Rick Russo, then go to David Pascal.
Hey, Jeremy, just curious, from a managerial and coaching standpoint, how difficult has the last couple of weeks been, especially with last week being postponed?
Well, when we came back, well, really to start, excuse me, when we went home, I think it was March the 12th was the date. It's been, everything changes daily, right? So there's lots of unknowns. Just really trying to adapt. And there's nothing that you can go back and draw from, so there's no history books on COVID, so it's all first times. I think it's been very important for our staff. We've really done a lot of quality control and documentation about how some of the things we did during March, April, May, June, just so we can go back and look at it, because we don't know, this might be the norm for next year too. So it's not like this is going to go away anytime soon. But so it has changed, but we've tried to adapt and provide the leadership for our players. so we can get the most out of them. And I know for those guys, that's the one thing I'm frustrated for a lot of these guys because their circumstances change quite frequently, and it's something out of things that they have no control over. So, but guys have a great attitude. They're working hard, and so they're excited to give a chance to play this week.
Jeremy, after the Auburn-Georgia game in early October, Kirby said that was not a Gus Malzahn offense, that was a Chad Morris offense. I didn't know if you've seen differences between what Chad's done compared to what Gus likes to do without giving away trade secrets.
Well, to me, they're very. I coached against Chad when he was at Clemson, and so they kind of come from the same family of offensive football. So there is some familiarity there. I probably see some of the things that Kirby probably was talking about, maybe because we have lots of history, right? So I'm sitting there. Coach Ansley's showing tape yesterday to the players, and I'm sitting there looking, and I'm trying to figure out what year this video actually was, and it's like 2013, so but we have lots of history, and I will say this, there's you can see that Chad has his thumbprint on it, maybe more so than Gus, but there's still a lot of things and flavor that shows up that's it's still Gus Malzahn's offense.
And I wanted to ask you about the game 2 years ago. Obviously, y'all had trouble running the football down there, but the way Jarrett played, and I think y'all converted like 10 third downs, and it seems like a lot of them were third and long. Was that, given the magnitude and beating a top 25 team on the road, is that as good of a performance as Jarrett's had?
Well, he played really good that day. You're right, we couldn't run the ball. We couldn't block them up front. They had a very good defensive front, and I felt like our wide receivers made a lot of plays that day. Our O-line held up in protection enough for us to get the ball out. It was very typical. I think the score might have been 17-0. I might be wrong there, but kind of had a history there playing against Auburn that seems like if you can get through the first couple of drives, they play so fast, and just getting accustomed to playing them. I was telling the defensive guys yesterday, if you look, the teams that kind of play Auburn every year have more familiarity with how the offense is run, and teams that don't play them every year seem to struggle. So it's important to understand what Auburn tries to do philosophically on offense, and we've really worked hard yesterday to kind of get that ingrained to our defensive players.
Risa Walker, then David.
Yeah, Coach, with how the SEC has tried to add an extra day for makeup games at the end of the year, how confident are you that you'll be able to get the full 10 games in this season after what we saw last week? And then this morning, the Ole Miss A&M game has now been postponed. Or do you just take this the rest of the season day by day and hope to finish at this point?
Well, obviously we can't predict the future. I believe we all knew when we started this, players, coaches, there was no guarantees. So, that's why I've been really proud of our football team, the way they go to work, the way they've stayed positive, and through the circumstances, right? So I think it says a lot about them as people and about their character. And I know they're excited about the opportunity this Saturday, so hopefully we'll get a chance to play.
David.
Jeremy, on the pay cuts, was that something your assistants had brought to you to discuss, or were those decisions kind of made independently on their own?
Yeah, David, I wasn't going to really talk about it, but with this whole thing, the communication and during the middle of the season, I did not specifically sit down with any assistant coach. I knew that they were being approached about it. I didn't know the outcome until Blake wrote the article on Friday. So, and what Blake wrote was factual, right? So, but I do believe, like I said before, that the final story has not been written there yet. So it's a fluid situation, and with contracts, things change. So there'll be opportunities, to make adjustments as we as we move on.
Brent Hubbs and Mike Wilson.
Coach, two things. One, you said your team was as healthy as you've been. I'm assuming that means Jared is back. And two, from a defensive standpoint, as you self-scout and look around the league, scoring is obviously up. Do you think that's because of the lack of a normal preseason, or do you think this is a shift in philosophy in the SEC offensively? What do you think the differences are in this league for scoring?
Probably a little bit of all what you said there, Brent. It's just, there's lots of really, really good players playing this game right now. There's quarterbacks that are prepared coming out of high school that can get people the ball out there in space. And, if you're committed to getting the ball out on the perimeter and you've got good players out there, lots of times you ain't got to block all the big guys up in front, right? So when you line up and run inside zone and you're going to run it 10 times, I mean, you're talking about 6 guys. It's got to block 6 guys exactly right with a back hitting it up in there. Whereas if you get the ball out in space and you got playmakers, guys can create explosive plays just like that. So it's something that I feel like you got to be able to do both. You have to be able to run the ball consistently in this league, but you got to create explosive plays. There's nothing like getting yards in chunks, and that's something that we've really been trying to focus on. You mentioned it. Somebody did about the last time we played Auburn. I don't know how many explosive plays we had that day. We couldn't run the football, but we could create explosive plays, and that was the difference in the game. So probably the two most important things when you talk about outcomes of games is number 1, turnovers, and number 2, explosive plays, whether you create them or you give them up.
On Jared, do you feel like he's going to be good to go for Saturday, or is that still day-to-day?
Well, he practiced yesterday, but all the other guys took a lot of reps over the last 3 practices. So, we'll see how the rest of the week goes here. But I was really excited about how these other guys continued to work. And I thought Jarrett had a good day yesterday. So, to me, it seems to be a little more confidence offensively, especially with our younger guys, just having a better idea to how to execute at a higher level.
Mike?
Yeah. Jeremy, what is Sean Schamberger's status with your team right now?
Sean is working on academics. This has been a very unusual, really circumstance with this whole deal. You try to do school from home, not being in person. Again, when you talk about tutors and things like that. So one of the things that he's focusing on, he's going to focus on academics the rest of the semester.
So you don't expect him back with your team then this season?
No.
All right, we'll go to Austin Price and Blake Topmeyer.
Coach, with the NCAA pushing the dead period for recruiting into the spring, how does that affect each staff, not just you guys, but around the league? And what kind of pressure does that put on for evaluations, and then what kind of detriment do you think that is to not just the 21 class, but now creeping into the 22 class?
Well, for us as coaches, if whatever tape that you get, you just have to evaluate it. Obviously, there wasn't any spring evals when you watch people in person. There wasn't any summer camps. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of football going on throughout the country. It's not consistent everywhere, so the opportunities for guys to improve their game is not there for everybody. The ones that I worry about are really the student athletes that are being recruited. The fact that they can't go on campuses, which I understand why they can't, but I can't imagine making a decision of where I'm going to go to school and I've never been to a campus. It's very unfortunate for them. I don't have the answer for it. I wished I did. But we as a staff have really worked hard to build relationships and do the best that we can to take Knoxville and the University of Tennessee to wherever that may be, by Zooming, online, videos, whatever means necessary.
Jeremy, you opted to forego a raise this season, and it's my understanding you were not asked to take a pay cut. With so many members of the athletic department taking a pay cut, including some within your program, was foregoing a raise enough, or should you have contributed a voluntary pay cut?
Well, we're in the process of we're appealing the NCAA because everybody that's under the football program, I don't know exactly how many numbers that had to take pay cuts. Me and Casey, we chose to supplement their salaries, but unfortunately, we have to go through the NCAA because there's a loophole there that we have to get an appeal for us to be able to give them a one-time gift, so we don't break any NCAA rules.
With your assistant coaches, with so many in the athletic department taking a pay cut this year, either voluntarily or not by their choice, do you think their decision reflects on their leadership, their decision up to this point to not take a pay cut, and if so, how?
Well, first of all, I'm really, with every conversation, each individual had a conversation with their administration to go through this. I was not privy of any of that because it's personal. But talking to the guys on our staff, I'm not exactly sure that that the outcome is exactly what they expected. I think that there's things that they wanted to do moving forward. We got guys that's got contracts coming up. We got guys that wanted to do things at the end of the year. So just for me, for an example, I do my tithe in the last Sunday of the year every year. So I write a check to the church, and so there's all kind of circumstances around each individual person, and I'm not really privy to every situation.
All right, Gustavo, then Matthew Ray.
Coach, how challenging it is to not play in Neyland Stadium in the month of November, something you haven't since 1891, having 3 consecutive road games? Is that challenging for you guys? I know the COVID situation played out, but is that challenge for you guys?
Gustavo, you come out of the gate so fast, I lost you there to start with. You said something about 1891. What were you saying?
This year is the first time since 1891 Tennessee is not going to have a game in Neyland Stadium in the month of November. Is that challenging for you guys to actually have 3 consecutive road games?
Well, I really didn't even know that. So that's since 1891. Yeah, I mean, obviously going on the road in this league is a challenge. I don't think it's as challenging as it is when the stadiums are full. But I think having a home game, the familiarity, that not putting in the travel, is definitely an advantage. I think it's good for Knoxville. It's good for our fans. And it's good for our team. So, and it's another thing, when we travel, we have to miss school on Fridays, so having a chance to be able to finish and do all your academics on Friday is important too. So we'll be glad when we get back. You said the whole month of November, right, Gustavo?
Yes. Texas A&M was the only game scheduled for the month of November. It was postponed, so no games for Tennessee in the month of November at home since 1891. Just as because, I imagine you guys, going to have 2 home games, but this month of November is a crunch time for the SEC.
Well, you can see my focus has been on Auburn. I hadn't even looked that far ahead.
All right, Matthew Ray.
Jeremy, last week you talked to us about, needing to be able to drive the ball down the field more and create explosive plays. What did you see from your offense in terms of a growth in that aspect this week? And then you mentioned Harrison Bailey had a solid week of practice. Where did you see him grow the most this week? Well,
just command. It's when when you are comfortable doing something, running an offense, whatever it is, right? You have confidence, right? And your peers can see it. You can't fake confidence. It's either natural or it's not. And that's not to take anything away from him, but the more you do something, the more comfortable you get at it, and the better you feel, and the more confident you are. And you can see that when it just the simplicity of communicating the calls, right, all the way across the board. So you're talking about a young guy that sitting here. He got to tell Trey Smith which guy he's supposed to block on this run play right here. The Mike's 42 or whatever. We're working to 42. Just some of that. So nothing different than any that you see out of any freshman, right? It's no different than Tamarian McDonald making all the calls in the secondary. Or last year Henry Toa. When Daniel Batuli was out, having to be kind of the quarterback of the defense. It's something that you the more you do it, the more you gain confidence in, and everybody sees it.
Last question, Steve Mullen.
Coach, to Auburn's offense, I'm wondering what you've seen out of their wide receiver core. I know they like to use JJ as well out of the backfield, but specifically Seth Williams. What have you seen out of his development, Coach?
Well, Seth's from Tuscaloosa there, and I was very familiar with him coming out of high school. He's a really, really good athlete, good basketball player. He's a guy that's really never covered. When I say that, you can have him covered, but you can tell that Bo has a lot of confidence in him. He throws the ball to him, and he goes and gets it. He can high point the ball. He creates yards after the catch. He's a tough out on one-on-one coverage, right? And then you throw in the mixture of the other guys they got. The Schwartz kid is the fastest guy in the country. I remember in high school going down and watching him run on the track. Just one day I'm watching him and another young man, just practice track during recruiting, and I'm just seeing him run by. I mean, this guy can fly, and he's really developed into a really good football player. So they've got some really nice weapons at wide receiver and at running back, and they do a nice job finding a way to get these guys the ball.
Defensively, Auburn's coming off their best performance against LSU. What kind of development have you seen from Auburn defensively, Coach?
Well, just, really because my relationship with Coach Steele, no different than a lot of teams across the country. Circumstances change every week. Obviously they've had some guys in, some guys out. Looked like that week they had more guys in, probably more that were healthier. And then you just talk about if you got a young group of guys, just the consistency, and the circumstances that we're all well aware of. I think it's probably affected a lot of teams. And I know just talking to Kevin, he's talked about that just between me and him. So they played really well, I thought, against LSU. And I expect them to play really well against us.
Thank you very much for have players available.
Is that it?